I am a black man, unapologetic and proud. And I proudly stand on the backs of those, my ancestors who have risked their lives for me to be a black man that has the right to vote, a black man that has the right to own a home, to purchase land, to drink from the same water fountains, to sit in front of the bus, and to have my children attend schools with kids who don't look like them. I have been a victim of racism. I've been a victim of prejudice and a countless number of microaggressions due simply to the color of my skin. So I am deeply grateful for those who fought for my right as a black citizen of the United States of America. But there is something more important to my identity than being black, and that is being a Christian. And at the forefront of Christianity is the pursuit of truth. In other words, I, as a Christian, am choosing to elevate my identity as a Christian far above my identity as a black man. And in doing so, I am committed at all costs to seeking out truth, because at the end of the day, Christianity is about being truthful. Christianity is about being a truth seeker. The Word of God says the truth will set us free. Now, sadly, there have been a plethora of untruths spread about Charlie Kirk after his unfortunate assassination that, if I'm just being honest straight up, need to be cleared up and addressed. And once again, I had a whole other video that I had planned for today. As you know, on Tuesdays is my video day. I had other video in the queue. But I keep getting all of these text messages, and my inbox are filled with messages from people who have unfortunately been persuaded. Unfortunately, people who have been hoodwinked, if you will, by mainstream media to believe that Charlie Kirk said and stood for things that he never said or stood for. And because he is unfortunately unable to be here to advocate for himself, others have to step up and advocate on his behalf. Now, to be clear, because I can already see where some of you all are going, when I say advocate, I'm simply saying to seek truth. I'm not fully endorsing everything that this man has said, thought, or done, and it is a shame that I have to keep saying this over and over again in the videos, but I know how some of you will be in the comments. I'm not fully endorsing anyone. The only person I will ever fully endorse everything they've said, done, or thought is Jesus Christ himself. The rest of us have said things, done things, and thought things that fall short of God's perfect standard, including Charlie Kirk. So now, before you go there, this video has absolutely nothing to do with politics or political party. It has everything to do with clearing up what I believe are lies that the mainstream media is using to smear a deceased man's name. Now, I know some of you are tired of videos about Charlie Kirk, and listen, I get it. This is more than likely going to be my final video that I do on Charlie Kirk, at least for some time. But I want you to just put all of your preconceived notions, all of your ideas aside, and just listen to what I'm going to say in this video. Please put your political positions aside, because this video is actually much greater than Charlie Kirk. It is about challenging people to use their God-given brains to be able to discern what someone has said and what they haven't. It's about using our brains to do some fact checking, to do our own personal research before we jump on the bandwagon and so easily be persuaded because you saw some isolated clip that was taken completely out of context, that the media has an agenda and they spun that in order to fulfill their agenda by the media. designed to get you to believe a narrative that is just actually not true. And they're preying on people that they know will not go back and fact check and watch the entire clip and put it in context. No, no, no. They want to just play a small clip and then get you to believe it. Well, I'm going to put an end to that. All right. So we're going to deal with 3 issues that I believe have been lies that have been spread about Charlie Kirk. So let's begin. Now, first up on the list is the topic of race. And since there's a strong possibility that some of you will click off of this video because you're not going to like what I'm going to say, I put this one on the beginning because I want to deal with this issue of race. Now, last video I talked about was Charlie Kirk a racist, but I didn't even go into any of the specific things that he said. I just dealt with it from a biblical perspective. But now I want to actually look at some clips and actually assess what did he say. Okay, so one lie that many people are promoting about Charlie Kirk is that Charlie Kirk said that black women don't possess the same brain power as white people. They are inferior in their intelligence. And this is the conclusion that people are drawing. They're saying, hey, he believes that all black women are inferior and they don't have the brain processing power to be successful or whatever people are saying. As a matter of fact, here's an example of what people are saying that he said.
Explain to me what Charlie Kirk meant when he said black women, such as myself, do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. And in order to get their jobs in high positions, like any job I had in government or in law, it was an affirmative action choice. And I took the slot of a white person.
Believe it or not, there's actually a very, 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 very simple answer to this.
Okay, so we're not going to watch the rest of this clip, but this actually is another black lady who is going to give the full context and give a credible answer to this foolishness that this other black woman says that Charlie Kirk said. But we're not even going to watch this video. Let's actually look at the clip itself in its entirety. All right, here we go.
You really have to wonder, in fact, you know, if we would have said 3 weeks ago, Blake, if we would have said that Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, and particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
I hear because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own. I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving. You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course, that's why we need affirmative action, because you have impressed us with your brilliance. Of course. Oh no, imagine the world without Joy Reid. Imagine the world without Sheila Jackson Lee or Michelle Obama or Ketanji Brown Jackson. They think this is persuasive. They think as they kind of now reveal that I'm only here because of anti-white, anti-Asian forced discrimination policies that turned me into a bitter, resentful activist that hates white people, honestly, through our policies.
As many times as I have been called DEI or an affirmative action baby and all that, you know what I never get? Mad. Because I actually am very much in favor of DEI. I don't take that as an insult because I understand that that means that I'm just damn excellent and innovative. And yeah, I am DEI. I'm bringing diversity, and that's bringing something great. You're not insulting me. If you say, oh, you're an affirmative action person that got into Harvard, I'm like, yeah, I got into Harvard with affirmative action, and Yale, and Brown, and also, Vassar, and the University of Denver.
Okay, so be as turned off as you want to be about what you just saw. All right? You don't have to agree with what he said. You don't have to like what he said. You can be as completely turned off as you want. You can think he's arrogant. You could think that he could have said it a different way. You could, quite frankly, say that he didn't have to say any of those things at all. You could be completely offended that he said that. But what you need to do is you need to pay attention to what he said and what he did not say. He did not say anywhere on this clip, as some have suggested, as the younger black woman in the earlier clip suggested, that black women in general, all black women, do not have the brain processing power that white people do or anything like that. He never said that. I just played the entire clip for you. He specifically mentioned 4 black women out of millions of black women of whom he has strong disagreement with from a political and policy standpoint. Let's be honest. He does not agree with their policies because he's Republican and they're Democrat. He's more conservative. They're liberal. He does not agree with their policies. He clearly does not care too much for these 4. So he shared his personal opinion of these 4 women who happen to be black. Not one time did he make a sweeping generalization about all black women. He mentioned these 4, I keep saying, out of the millions of black women in the world. 4. Now, once again, I'm not saying that I agree with what he said. I'm not saying that I personally don't have respect for these 4 black women myself. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying I don't have respect for Michelle Obama. I'm not saying any of those things. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and let media spin a narrative that is simply untrue and to make it out as if he said something that he did not actually say. He never said all black women. Now, I could go into a whole lot more detail. I could talk about, well, if he believed that, then why was one of his best friends Candace Owens black? Why did he hire so many black women on his staff? Why did he have these minority summits and things like that, and specific programs within Turning Point USA specifically designed to help those who are minorities and things like that? I could go into all that, right? But, and by the way, usually people who are racist don't do those types of things. But the point is, he did not say that, all right? Now, I'm going to bring this home to you because over the past roughly 10 years or so, I have been in countless conversations with my black friends. So I'm just going to put it out there, okay? Who have made similar, and might I say, even more offensive comments about white politicians, particularly one in general, President Donald Trump. And I've heard them all. I've heard people say that he doesn't have the brain processing power to be president, that he is not a very bright man, that he only got into office because he was white, that if black people did what he did and had the history that he had, then they would have never been able to get in. But the only reason why he got in was because he was white. I've heard people say things like he has the vocabulary of a fly on the wall and things like this. And people have said all kinds of things about Donald Trump and his, what they perceive, inability or not being equipped or not being smart enough or not having the brain processing power to run our country. And not just about him, about all kinds of other white politicians. And isn't it interesting that you will make these comments about another white person or a couple of white people, not all white people, but you'll make these comments, but you won't consider yourself to be a racist. You won't consider yourself, you will not hold yourself to the same standard that you're holding Charlie Kirk to, because he made a specific comment within a context about 4 black women who he strongly disagrees with from a policy and political standpoint. You don't see the hypocrisy in that? So let me be clear. I'm not defending the content that Charlie Kirk said in this clip. Is it crazy? I have to keep saying that. But I am defending the context in which he said it and ensuring you that let's just look at what he said. So to wrap this first issue up, if you watched that clip and you came away with the assumption that the man was racist, well, either A, you didn't watch the clip at all right, or B, you saw a portion of the clip that the media cut and spun specifically to get you to believe the narrative that it wants you to believe because they have an agenda. And more than likely, a lot of the people that are texting me and emailing me and things of that nature, they've never even heard of Charlie Kirk before a couple of weeks ago. They just saw a clip online and made an assumption. Or C, you watched the entire clip, but as he said, you do not possess the brain processing power yourself to properly interpret what was said and what was not said. Now, before I leave this point, let's look at another clip where he actually interacts with another black woman. And you tell me whether this sounds like things that someone who is racist or against all black women would say. Let's check it out.
How are you? What a beautiful kid that is.
Thank you.
What a gift from God.
Yeah. She truly is. She is the biggest blessing. Something that kind of has me like on the fence of whether or not I go kind of like full blown more like conservative or moderate is just seeing how
Give it up. That is a gift from the Lord, everybody. That is just beautiful.
I see that, we're starting to save a lot of money from things such as like Doge, but do you think that some of that money should go back to maybe like reforming the way that welfare is done to help poor families who do want to kind of pursue that American dream?
Great question. The number one objective of any social welfare program should be how do we keep the family together and put dads back in the family. Unfortunately, in the black community, dads are the most absent of any community. About 2/3 of all black youth will be raised without a stable father around. And I know it's crazy, right? And that little precious angel of yours deserves to have a father around. And unfortunately, as we've removed dads from families, government has come in and has taken the place. So some people need help and they need social assistance. All of that should be about incentivizing the dad staying around, not the dad leaving. The Democrat Party does not talk about dads at all. The Republican Party, we are talking about how men need to be men again, in the home, take responsibility, provide for your family, and with strong families comes smaller government and a better country.
If you watch enough of his clips and just stop looking at media, what you'll see is that over and over again, at least all the things that I've seen, is that Charlie Kirk is calling the black community to do better. He actually wants to see the black community thrive. And he has said repeatedly how much he wants to see more black men in the home as fathers. He has said repeatedly to black people on every campus, stop having a victim mentality. Stop believing that you can't achieve the same things a white person can achieve. Stop seeing your race as something that limits you. He's said this over and over again. I don't know about you, but that is the exact message that I believe our young people need to hear today. Now, let me ask you a question. If I, as a black man, can say all of those things to other black people, why can't a white person say the same things without being labeled as a racist? All right, let's move on from that one, but let's stay on this issue of race. And the reason why I'm doing a lot of these because I'm a black person, I'm getting messages from black people. And so now let's deal with this idea of DEI or affirmative action. And we're going to specifically focus on his comments that he made about a black pilot. All right. Now let's check out the full clip once again and not just isolated clips.
All right, let me tell you exactly what I said,
Sure,
okay?
thank you.
So this was in response, first and foremost, to United Airlines saying that half of all their new pilots that they're going to hire are going to be women or people of color. Currently, they're 15%.
Okay.
So they want to go from 15% to 50%. A conversation then ensued about how every time affirmative action is employed, standards have to be lowered. There's not a single instance where that does not occur. So then I said, boy, if I see a black pilot, I'm now going to wonder, is that individual qualified or are they selected because of their race? comma, but that's not who I am, but this makes me think this way. And I stand completely by that statement.
Okay.
Secondly, let me just finish.
Sure. Yeah, sorry.
DEI and affirmative action, what it does is it lowers the merit, it lowers the threshold of standards, and increases things that do not matter, such as skin color and ethnic background. So that is what I said.
Okay.
Now, a more important question to ask me is, Charlie, do you believe that black pilots can be qualified? Of course. Any individual can be qualified. I want a hiring quota and program that only cares about qualification, not skin color. And thirdly, I would say, why does United Airlines care so much about the color of the pilots that are flying them? Shouldn't they just want the best pilots? When you guys are flying from Vegas to Dallas or Vegas to Chicago, are you going to feel safer or more comfortable when you hit turbulence if you have a diverse pilot, or if you have a cockpit of the most qualified people that are there that have proven that they know how to land and fly planes?
How do you feel about legacies in that regard? Because legacies obviously have a leg up in getting into certain institutions just based on who went there before them that is close to them.
How do I feel? I think legacies are somewhat against merit, to be consistent.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
just want to make sure you're consistent.
But I will say, though, that the study of legacies have been done because their parents are smart. They're usually actually pretty smart. And so the moving average is that legacies aren't nearly as unqualified as some affirmative action people, but there are plenty of unqualified legacies that get into Ivy League institutions, to be consistent.
All right. So now notice several things that he said. All right. First, he said either here or in other clips that there is documented proof that when affirmative action is applied, standards are lowered to allow people to get in. This is true. All right. Second, the context of his statement was in response to United Airlines going on record and saying that 50% of all new pilots that we hire must be a person of color or a woman. Now, to be fair, I think where Charlie Kirk misses this and where a lot of people who are not minority miss this is there is something to be said about representation, right? So let me make sure I say this very, very carefully. So if you are white and you see white pilots, you just take it for granted that you can be a white pilot, right? But when you are an African American, or let's say a young kid, and all you see is white pilots, you might think, well, I don't think I could be a white pilot because I've never seen a black pilot. So there's something beautiful. There's something to be said when we do have diversity, and we do see minorities, because representation is very, very important. So now when a young black boy sees a black pilot, he might think, oh, you know what? I can be a pilot because I see another person who has same skin color as me. I'm not saying that every black person needs that in order to be successful. I'm saying some do. Okay. Now, what else does he say? Well, third, he said that he firmly believes that black people can be competent enough to be great pilots. He never said, well, white people are better pilots than black people. No, he said black people can definitely be competent. He just go watch the clip. Competent enough to be great pilots. And finally, when the guy tried to trap him at the end, because it was a trap question, and ask him his opinion of legacies, he remained consistent. Now, if you're not familiar with a legacy is, basically what a legacy is let's just say your father went to Harvard. And so because they are a Harvard alum, you now, because you are their daughter or their son, you can get in easier to Harvard because your father was a Harvard alum. And so you would think that Charlie would be like, oh, legacies are good. But no, he actually it stays consistent. And he says, hey, no. Even if it's a legacy situation, right? If that person, that son or daughter of the parent who went there, if they are not as qualified, then they are also taking away a spot from someone who's more qualified, and they shouldn't get in just because their mom or their dad went in. So he remains consistent on that. Now, finally, as I did in the race example, let's flip it back on you. All right. You're a parent. Your daughter worked hard her entire life to be able to qualify for, let's just say, the upcoming Olympic Games. She runs track and field. She runs the 4x100. And let's just say her times that she ran prove that she should be on the 4x100 relay team. She's got the fastest time. But let's just say that the Olympic Committee came up with a rule and they said, hey, you know what? From this day forward, we must guarantee that 2 out of every 4 women who are on a 4x100 relay team must be white women. Now, here your daughter, she's worked very, very hard. Her times are clearly better than the 2 white women who got selected to be on the 4x100 relay team to represent their country in the Olympics. Your daughter has faster times, but they get to go in and run and represent their country because they're white and because there has been a program put in place that guarantees that 2 out of every 4 are white women. Now, answer me this. As a parent, how would you feel about that particular system being in place? Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Well, that was the system that was in place all many years. And that's what kept black people down, and all, which is the whole reason why affirmative action came into existence. Yes, I get that. But what I think what Charlie Kirk is saying and what many people are saying today is, okay, yeah, we recognize the past. The past was wrong. But now let's set up a system where people can get opportunities not based on skin color at all, white, black, Asian, doesn't matter, but simply based on an equal standard of merit. And finally, if you were watching the Olympic Games and you already knew that the Olympics committee put this rule in place, would you not at least wonder if these white women had fast enough times to qualify? Like he wondered, boy, I hope this black pilot is qualified. Would you not be thinking, boy, I hope these white women actually got in because of their times? Would you not wonder if they had fast enough times to qualify, or if they got on the team because the Olympic Committee made a rule that 2 out of every 4 women on the relay team had to be white? Now, be honest about that. Would you not be mad at the system that kept your daughter out of the Olympics that she trained and worked so hard for her entire life? And if you were mad at the system and spoke out against it, should you be considered a racist? All right, let's now move on to the final issue, the issue of gun control. All right, so some of you are making him out to look as if he was pro-gun violence because of what he said, that he was actually for gun violence. All right, but once again, let's look at it in context.
Recently, and a lot of people are upset. But I'm seeing people argue for the other side that they want to take our Second Amendment or rights away. How do we convince them that it's important to have the right to defend ourselves and all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I'm a big Second Amendment fan, but I think most politicians are cowards when it comes to defending why we have a Second Amendment. This is why I would not be a good politician, or maybe I would, I don't know, but because I actually speak my mind. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal defense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
Come on.
And if that talk scares you, wow, that's radical, Charlie. I don't know about that. Well, then you have not really read any of the literature of our founding fathers. Yep. Number 2, you've not read any 20th century history. You're just living in Narnia. By the way, if you were actually living in Narnia, you would be wiser than wherever you're living, because C.S. Lewis was really smart. So I don't know what alternative universe you're living in. Yep. You just don't want to face reality that governments tend to get tyrannical, and that if people need an ability to protect themselves and their communities and their families. Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. And that is part of liberty. Wow. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. Wow. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. Wow. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to 0. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, yes, by having more armed guards in front of schools. Yes. Yes. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. Wow. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at baseball games? Because we have armed guards outside of baseball games. That's why. How did we stop all the shootings at airports? We have armed guards outside of airports. How do we stop all the shootings at banks? We have armed guards outside of banks. How do we stop all the shootings at gun shows? Notice there's not a lot of mass shootings at gun shows. There's all these guns because everyone's armed. If our money and our sporting events and our airplanes have armed guards, why don't our children?
All right, so I'm not sure how you can listen to this clip and disagree with what he said, but if I'm missing something, which is quite possible, by all means, let me know in the comments section. Correct Brother Allen and let me know. But this is what I heard him say. First, he said that the purpose of guns is not first and foremost to murder or to hunt or anything like that. It is first and foremost to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government, a government that might use force, and we have to have something to protect ourselves against the government. Second, he affirmed that there needs to be some gun reform to lower the number of deaths associated with guns. And he even provided some solutions as to what we can do. Things like putting armed guards in front of schools and different things like that. So clearly he's on board with some sort of gun reform. So he said that. Media probably won't show those types of clips. They'll only show the clip that says, well, I think it's worth it. It's worth it to have some gun deaths every year. But show the whole clip, right? But then he was essentially saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he was basically saying in order to protect our Second Amendment to have guns for the purpose of protecting yourself, there will inevitably be unfortunate deaths related to guns. Why? Because there will be people where these guns will get into the wrong hands of people who are mentally ill. And unfortunately, even though a gun in and of itself is not necessarily the problem, as I've seen people on Facebook post things like guns are the problem. No, knives aren't the problem. We use knives to cut food and to cut onions. Knives are not the problem. Fire is not the problem, but you can use fire to burn down a building or you can use knives to cut people, and you could use a gun to kill people. Yeah. So the idea is that, yes, there are going to be unfortunate deaths, but the only way to get that number to zero would be to remove all guns from our country, from all people who are gun owners. And then if you do that, then, okay, you can avoid all of the gun deaths and things of that nature. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then he uses the illustration of people driving cars. And he's like, you know what? It's the same type of thing in that we know we have more deaths by cars, 50,000 every year, than there are by guns. But yet we don't go as far as to say, you know what? We're going to just remove all driving from all people because there are 50,000 people who die every year, innocent people who die at the hands of people who maybe were distracted, texting and driving, or drunk driving, or whatnot. No, we don't go that far. And he's suggesting that we don't necessarily go that far with the Second Amendment. That's what I heard him say. But not once did I hear him say, as some are suggesting, that he is pro-gun violence. Yeah, more gun violence. Charlie Kirk's pro-gun violence. Never heard him say that, right? And God forbid people who are saying, well, hey, see, this is what he got exactly what he deserved, because here he is advocating for gun violence, and then he ended up getting killed by a gun. Wow, just how insensitive is that to say when the man never said he was pro-gun violence? Watch the whole clip. Use your brain. Do your fact checking. Do your research. Stop being persuaded by media, taking a 1-minute clip, watch the 4-minute clip, and come to your own conclusions after you've done your research. Here's the last thing I'm going to say. if you just take a moment and put your experiences, your emotions, and all the stuff that you got going on and your preconceived notions of Charlie Kirk or whoever you're passing judgment on aside, and just apply your brain and listen to the things that I've said in this video and other clips and do your research, I think you'll see that a lot of it actually makes sense. And as I close, I am sure there are things that Charlie Kirk himself would say, you know what, perhaps I could have said that differently, could have worded that differently. Maybe I could have used a different tone. Maybe I didn't have to use so much sarcasm. Maybe I didn't, whatever. But guess what, guys? All of us have been there. I know I'm probably sound very arrogant in this video. I admit it. And some of you might make that claim. That's okay, right? All of us probably can go back in our lives and say, yeah, I didn't say that as well as I could, or man, my tongue slipped here. I didn't really say this the way I wanted to, or I said it the way I wanted to, the words, but the tone wasn't quite right. All of us can. Matter of fact, James says this. It says, indeed, we all make many mistakes. For if we could control our tongues, we would be perfect and could also control ourselves in every other way. And finally, for those who have gone as far as to say that this man was not even a Christian because of the things that you heard him say or think that he said, just want to leave you with one final clip of a man who is simply sharing the gospel. Take a listen.
But when did you accept Christ?
5th grade at Christian Heritage Academy.
What happened?
Remember, I heard a hot gospel, and I heard what happens if you don't give your life to Jesus. And it's very important that when we share the gospel, the modern gospel is God has this beautiful, amazing, wonderful life for you, and if you give your life to Christ, your life will infinitely improve. That is somewhat true, but it's very misleading, because you're basically trying to sell people in Christianity of a life without difficulty, where the better way to teach the gospel is, here's the 10 commandments. How many of these are you violating? Oh, you deserve to go to hell, and you probably will, unless you give your life to Christ. That is the proper way to evangelize. And so I realized the stakes in 5th grade. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm a sinner, I'm selfish, I'm broken, and only thanks to Jesus' perfect sacrifice, coming and living a perfect life, that I get something I do not earn, but has been given to me, this free gift of eternal life.
All right, guys, as I mentioned, this is probably my final video that I'm going to do on this Charlie Kirk issue. It is not my intent to belabor this issue over and over again, but over the last week, I've tried my best not to make this video and to leave it alone and just move on from it. But the Spirit just kept stirring up something in me to say, you know what, I've got to set this straight. I know other people have done videos on this, but I felt like I had something to say and add to the conversation, particularly in response to some of the messages I've been getting from various people. So hopefully, I know we were able to cover everything that the man said and all the different issues, but hopefully the things that we've covered in this video will, A, maybe shed a different light about Charlie Kirk. And once again, I'm going to say this for the 10th time, I'm not in any way, shape, or form painting him out to be Jesus or a perfect man or anything like that, or not saying I agree with everything he said or everything or how he said everything. No, I'm definitely not, right? But hopefully it'll paint a different picture, as well as, more importantly, teach us all a very powerful and important lesson. Before we jump to conclusions, let's do our research, do the fact checking, look at things like we do the Bible in context, because you guys know my rule. Anytime you take the text out of context, you get conned every time. All right. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.